his sacrificial service and devoted to improving life for all. He truly believed that everyone could achieve greatness, and greatness not measured by money and material or wealth, but rather how well we serve God and others. So today, as we commemorate the beginning of his birthday, let us all realize that the work is not done yet. We must continue to fight the race as he so eloquently said before us. Remember that we are not free. We only free for a little while. There's still some places we cannot go and sit down and eat comfortably. There's still some roads who are not uncovered yet. We must all realize that we have a responsibility to our God and to Dr. King for what he had done for us. So let us continue to not to leave the legacy behind, but pick up the torch and go forward. For we know that God is the earth of all things that we do, and he makes all our plans well satisfied.
As we gather here in 2011 for this wonderful celebration of the life of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., I was somewhat betwixt and between seeking what words that God would say to us. After looking back through the life of the African American and seeing where God has brought us from, it seems to me that we have in many ways become somewhat lax. And I could even use the word complacent about where we are going. The Bible tells us that we ought to keep our eyes on the prize. Amen. My question is, do we really know anymore what is the prize? As we pause this afternoon to look back at the life of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., we find a man whose life was designed and planned by God with a purpose. The same God that gave Dr. King's life a purpose is the same God that has designed your life with a purpose. When we look at Dr. King, we realize that this man had so many opportunities to do so many other things in his life. But his life was designed with purpose by God. It was not by chance that Dr. King was born in a well-to-do middle-class family. It was planned by God. It is not by chance that his parents were college educated, because they would also push him to become an educated man. It is not by chance that he came from a family of ministers, because God knew that he needed some mentoring early on in his life. It is not by chance that Dr. King entered Morehouse College at the age of 15 years old. It is not by chance that he excelled at Morehouse in the studies of law and medicine. God knew that he would need it later on in his life. It is not by chance that he was introduced to Mahatma Gandhi's philosophy of nonviolence while at Kroger Theological Seminary. He would need it later on in life. It is not by chance that God knew that the doctorate that he earned at Boston University would develop his own ethic and theology, as he would write his dissertation on God and man's relationship in the thinking of Paul Tillich and Wiseman. These theologies would undergird his own theology. I could go on and on as to how God had this great plan and purpose for Dr. King's life. And with all that Dr. King was given, he could have chosen to go another way. He had the money. He had the education. He had good health. He could have simply looked the other way. But Dr. King was a man who was loose with a purpose. So when blacks had to ride on the back of the bus, he couldn't look the other way because he had a purpose. While discrimination was existing in jobs and inequalities in housing and education, he could not look the other way. Even when it meant that he would be arrested and put in jail, he could not look the other way because he was loose for a purpose. Need help. Bound people need help. The fangs of sickness and death had its grip on Lazarus. If Lazarus could have freed himself, he would have. But bound people need help. When we look around our own communities and we see people struggling to meet the basic needs of life, what we are really seeing is people who are bound and they need help. Their hands are tied and they cannot help themselves. People are bound. They are bound with no job. They are bound with no income. They are bound with no spiritual guidance. They are bound with no mentors in their lives. They are bound with no direction and with no purpose for life. People all around us are bound and their hands are tied and they need someone to help them. Who shall help them? Bound people need help from those who are already free. See, if your hands are tied, or should I say bound, and my hands are tied, or should I say bound, there is very little that we can do to come